Since 1823, mothers and fathers have made reading Clement Clarke Moore's "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" to their little ones a Christmas Eve tradition. Author Pamela McColl has researched this iconic poem for her latest book, "'Twas the Night: The Art and History of the Classic Christmas Poem." We went on the local scene to learn more about Pamela, her work, and her history with this iconic holiday classic.
I grew up with a lot of people who encouraged me to use my creativity and to read. I was one of the people whose dolls had library cards. I had so many children's books. So I was blessed with a lot of great aunts and uncles who provided me with a lot of literature. So I have loved children's literature and the characters that come with it. So from Winnie the Pooh to Snoopy, I mean, they played a big part of my growing up. And I think Santa Claus is a big piece of that. I think that magical thinking and creative thinking and reading are such an important part of a child's education. It's magical thinking. It's the belief, right, that this jolly character with his reindeer is going to visit your home and give you something. And as I, often tell people, there's no naughty or nice in this. It's inclusive. There's no birch and rod, there's no penalty, there's no creepy elf checking on your behavior and reporting back to anybody. This is benevolence, kindness, but it's magical thinking. It's all the characters we can think of that instill hope in children, of a promise of something to come that's good. It's not just that the poem's read. There's a day of the year that celebrates the poem, right? I mean, Christmas Eve is this poem brought to life by billions of people, right? Yeah. And so every Christmas Eve, this poem has its day, and hopefully will for another 200 years or more. It's the spirit of Christmas for sure. And the Christmas dinner, creation of Christmas dinner, the way we do it now, I think you can credit to Dickens and Washington Irving. But I say that Clement C. Moore gave us Christmas Eve and Santa and the reindeer. And it's such a huge part of so many people's Christmas. And we're here at the Mayflower Society's research library. They're very gracious to have me here to speak about the book I've done and the connections to the Mayflower and the Pilgrims. And it's just been, this whole project has been a wonderful thing to do. It's just a great piece of American history. The staff have been great. Everybody's been just really receptive. And I'm speaking at probably 20 museums in the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks in 4 states or 5 states. So it's just bringing history to people through a poem. I have a history background, so my education, I went to Queen's University in Kingston, just across the border, and I wanted to work in children's television or production. That was my goal as a teenager, but I turned my interest to art history and into the career of an art consultant. So I was a corporate art consultant for 25 years. So I bought art for hospitals and for governments and for private corporations. And so I left writing and I left children's production and all of those things. But then in my 50s, 10 years ago, I decided to get back into publishing, and I published The Night Before Christmas. And I did it with a special feature to it. I took out the smoking Santa, and it became a really big sensation around the world, and I'm not understating that. It went from Bombay to Brisbane that I had taken the smoking pipe away from Santa. And so I decided to write this book 10 years ago. I realized that the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" turned 200 on Christmas Eve of 2022, and so I started working on it 10 years ago, and it does celebrate its bicentennial this Christmas Eve. I started off wanting to write the history of the night before Christmas, and that involves Clement C. Moore, who was born at the end of the American Revolution and dies at the end of the American Civil War. So it's a great period of history to look at. But what I realized was the connection to his ancestors and to the early days of Christmas in America. One had to go back. And so I went back, and so the book has, Harriet Beecher Stowe's story about the first Christmas in America with the Pilgrims from the Mayflower. And it has the other aspect of the whole history of this poem is St. Nicholas. And so I realized that not only do I have to go back to the 1700s, I had to go back to the Roman Empire because it's St. Nicholas who was the inspiration for the storyline, which is this benevolent saint throwing gold balls through a window anonymously to save these daughters who are being sold into slavery because the father doesn't have a dowry. And so St. Nicholas comes to the rescue, but he wants to do it anonymously, and the father stays awake and figures out it's St. Nicholas, and the legend builds, right? So that's the essence of the poem. It comes from St. Nicholas. And then you have to follow through all the centuries, get yourself into England, in the court of, Elizabeth and James I, and then find your way across the oceans to America. So it's quite a big history piece. And then, of course, because the poem is so visual in its language, and it's been illustrated thousands of times, that because of my art background, I had to go and research the art, not only of the illustrations, but of the artists who have been inspired by it. When you look at the history of the editions, too, you come to the golden age of illustration, which is 1880 to 1920, and you come across the great Howard Ply, you come to Jessica Wilcox-Smith, W. Denslow, some really major talented people. So quite the project. The one thing I want more than anything else is for this poem to continue, because there was so much competition. I go into bookstores now. I was in six bookstores yesterday, and the competition's huge. There's an elf, there's a reindeer, there's an elf who can't find his way somewhere, there's all these things, right? And I would hate to see this fall down and not be given the credit it's due, and not be read as much. And I've seen the readings kind of falling off a little bit. So I'm hoping that the bicentennial, which is this Christmas Eve, of the reading and the writing, brings people back to the core of it, and to and I think this whole artistic legacy of the poem too. I hope people can take an interest in this book that I've done because of these amazing, talented artists who came to this poem. I mean, Denslow illustrated Wizard of Oz. People know him for that, but he did this as well. It is absolutely the spirit of Christmas. It's giving, kindness, inclusion, and magical thinking. And I think we need magical thinking. We do. We need creative thought. We need magical thinking, and creativity. It's just so important for children, especially.
It's inspiration.
It is. It absolutely is inspirational. And if you can't hope, like, it's hope, right? Mm-hmm. You hope he's going to show up, right? And he does, right? Dreams do come true.
For more information on Pamela McColl and her book, visit twasthenightbook.com. Thank you for watching. We are grateful for your attention. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe to The Local Scene here and share everywhere. Thank you, friends.